Over the last 3 John Wick movies, the unstoppable assassin has been through a lot. He lost his wife and dog, his car got stolen, he was shot, stabbed, and fell off a skyscraper. He's been through hell and back, and it looks like he's going back again. In today's video, we're unpacking director Chad Stahelski's comments about the upcoming movie, and how John will have to face his reckoning. Let's jump right in. First up, John may be the hero, but his actions have consequences. So the most recent trailers establish one thing perfectly clear. John's no longer at 10 HP. He's had time to rest, recover, and learn new skills, and he's definitely gonna need them if he's going up against Donnie Yen. More on that later. But let's go back to the consequences we mentioned earlier. He's been an aimbotting murder machine ever since Viggo's son stole his car and killed his dog. You'd think that his quest for vengeance is justified, right? Well, yes and no. You can't just kill dozens of men and get away with it, can you? Director Chad Stahelski made that pretty clear with the second and third movies. The more John kills, the more people come after him, and the cycle never stops. He spoke with Total Film recently and admitted that John's relentless violence might give fans a cathartic payoff, but his behavior has consequences for both himself and the people he cares about. Case in point, Sophia in Chapter 3. He asks her for help, and she takes him to her former boss, Barada. Barada tells John how to meet the Elder in the desert, but demands one of Sophia's dogs as payment, and we know what happened next. Next, what does this mean for John in Chapter 4? We know that he stopped running. He's been running ever since the end of Chapter 2, but now he's got the Bowery King by his side, and we're not taking him lightly. Like we said, John's no longer the hunted, and he's not critically injured or tired anymore. Instead, we're finally going to see Baba Yaga at 100% power, but the consequences of his actions are still looming in the background, no matter what he does next. In the next chapter, we'll see him on a globe-trotting adventure, going to places like Berlin, Paris, and even Japan. It's a bigger John Wick adventure than we've ever seen before, but how will he deal with the fallout? Well, the director said that the movie's going to address this from the get-go. We've seen it happen in the first, second, and third movies already, but the fourth one will double down on it. Willem Dafoe's character Marcus helps John out a bunch of times while he's on his rampage. Even though he accepted the $2 million bounty to kill his former mentee, he decides against it, and the result, Viggo has him tortured and killed. Would Marcus have died so brutally if John hadn't been out killing Viggo's men and his son? No, he'd be alive. Not to mention, whenever John asks someone for help, they end up paying a price. We've seen what happened to Marcus, but the director in Chapter 3 helps him out because he spent his childhood with the Ruscaroma crime syndicate. He gives her the rosary and asks for safe passage to Casablanca. She does it reluctantly, cause after all, he's Jordana Jovanovic. But then the adjudicator comes in with Zero, who kills most, if not all, of her guards, and then stabs her through both hands as penance for helping John. Oh, and remember the gun he borrowed from the Bowery King in Chapter 2? The adjudicator comes knocking on his door about that too. Zero and his students slaughter his men, and he gets slashed 7 times across the body for helping John out. So yes, John's an unstoppable killing machine, but he's put the people he cares about in danger more times than he can count. But don't worry, even though he's going to be dealing with the trauma of the last 3 movies, Chad says that nothing will curb him in any way, and honestly, that's exactly what we want. The last thing John should do is hold back against an enemy that's been out for his blood. We want the man using everything in the environment to give us the most epic kill streaks in a John Wick movie that we've ever seen. Coming up, why John Wick 4 could be the best movie yet. We've talked about how John's gonna go on an international adventure soon, but Chad revealed an important detail that has us really hyped. John's been practicing his martial arts and nunchucks, but he's gonna need a lot more than that to square up with Donnie Yen's Kane, a character who has a history with him. The director recently revealed that Chapter 4 takes inspiration from Japanese culture. It's got a Far East theme to it that most Chambara films have. If you haven't heard of Chambara films before, they're basically a genre of samurai films that are equivalent to American westerns. And Chad Stahelski is a huge fan of the genre. Plus, one of his all-time favorite Japanese characters is Zatoichi, a blind masseur and swordsman from Japan's Edo period, somewhere between the 1830s and 40s. Apparently, Kane might be inspired by Zatoichi, since Donnie does a lot of swordplay in the trailers. Chad's even teased that Chapter 4 is a cross between the good, the bad, and the ugly, and Zatoichi. Our hype meter has reached an all-time high. Plus, Donnie isn't someone you just invite as a supporting actor and have him die in one scene. No. The man is a legend. Even at 59, he kicks more ass than most people do at 25, and Chad knows that audiences expect John to brutalize Kane in creative ways, but they also expect Kane to do the same to John. Now for who's joining Donnie to kick Keanu's The next chapter has a decidedly Asian taste. Japanese acting legend Hiroyuki Sanada and singer Rina Sawayama are gonna be appearing in the movie. Rina's making her Hollywood debut as Akira, who's probably gonna go up against John at some point. But we all know how that turns out, right? But on a separate note, the fact that Sanada, an expert martial artist and swordsman in his own right, will go toe-to-toe with Donnie Yen is making us salivate, respectively of course. After watching the trailer, their sword duel became one of the fights we can't wait to see. Honestly, it's not even about John at this point. The Wick universe has expanded beyond him. Chad revealed in an Empire interview that John Wick 4 will feature multiple storylines that eventually converge. The team knew that they had a formula that worked for the franchise ever since Chapter 3 came out, but they said it and decided to try something new. So Chapter 4 has multiple storylines, a protagonist coming to terms with the consequences of his actions, and several new action stars that are ready to kick John's. But is John prepared to take them on? Up next, Chad pushed Keanu to his physical and creative limits. Back in November, the directors talked to IGN about how Chapter 4 needs to be the most John Wick movie ever. It doesn't just need to be a fourth sequel, it needs to set a new bar and then smash through it. Now that's a tall order, even for Chad. But when you combine his creative talents with Keanu's, there's bound to be a spark. Speaking with IGN, he recalled asking Keanu to get better at being the character and embodying his unstoppable nature. The actor needed to expand his horizon, so to speak, learning new forms of martial arts, getting better at what he already knew, and even mastering the nunchucks. In fact, he had to learn the nunchucks from scratch, which meant months of training and smacking himself in the face when he swung them wildly. The man was pushed to the edge of his physical limits, but hey, he's only 58, right? That's a year younger than Donnie Yen, and look at how the Hong Kong star movies on camera. So yeah, he needed to keep up with an all-new cast of fighters, which includes Scott Adkins, by the way. He's quite underrated as an action star, but don't let his cameo roles in Hollywood fool you. He played Yuri Boyko in the Undisputed franchise, and not even John Wick could match his physical prowess, not unless he had access to a pencil. Anyway, Chad was pretty wild with his ideas too. While scouting locations in Paris, we saw the Arc de Triomphe and thought, why not have a huge action scene set piece with horses here? And you know what? Keanu was more than happy to hop on a horse again. Finally, it's the toughest movie Keanu has ever made. Is that an exaggeration to promote the movie? We don't know. But if it's the toughest movie he's ever made, that means it tops The Matrix, right? Both Keanu and Chad have worked on the Matrix films, with Chad being a stunt double in all three movies. What's more, Chad was also in The Matrix Resurrections, where he played Tiffany's husband, Chad. Anyway, even though he pushed Keanu to his physical limits in Chapter 4, the actor didn't complain once. Whatever it was, whether it was combat or weapons training, he trained until he perfected his moves. He talked about the difficulty of playing John at this year's Brazil Comic-Con experience. Speaking at a post-panel conference, he said that it's the most challenging role he's undertaken in his career in terms of action. The Arc de Triomphe sequence is one of the stunts Keanu teased, and he described it as a fight scene in heavy traffic. And that reminds us of Mission Impossible Fallout. Tom Cruise rides a bike through heavy traffic, and we see him go around the Arc de Triomphe, weaving through oncoming cars. Maybe the stunt team took inspiration from it and asked Keanu to do the same, except this time it'd be on horseback. We can imagine that that'd be pretty tough to do, but still, no matter how hard it was to physically play John Wick, Keanu told the panel that he loved every second of it. Even though it's the hardest movie he's ever made, he loves getting to do wild stunts with his friends and then present them to all of us. And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for watching. So, do you think this movie's gonna be Keanu's biggest John Wick project yet? How will it set the stage for Chapter 5? Tell us down below. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more John Wick videos. See you at the next one.